During the Reconstruction era, the U.S. Congress passed an act allowing voters of Virginia, Mississippi, and Texas to vote on their new state constitutions and to elect state officers and members of Congress. 3 months later, President Ulysses S. Grant signed a proclamation submitting the Texas Constitution to the voters of the state. Texans voted on a new state constitution in November 1869 and elected a state government. Once approved, the legislature voted to ratify the 14th and 15th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution, the 13th Amendment having already been fully ratified, and elected 2 U.S. senators. Once everything was approved, Texas was ready for reinstatement. President Grant signed the act to readmit Texas to the Union on March 30, 1870. African Americans were a major issue during Reconstruction. People debated on how much freedom they should have, whether it be no freedom or freedom equal to whites.
Many African Americans wanted the right to vote and thought it was unfair that just because of their race they couldn't vote. The 15th Amendment declared that the rights of the citizens of the U.S. shall not be denied by any state on account of race, color, or previous work. The amendment was passed on February 26, 1869, and ratified on February 3, 1870. Under the Radical Republicans, the new legislature of Texas passed the 15th Amendment, which was one of the final requirements for readmission into the Union. From then on, all adult males of the U.S. had the right to vote.
Southern whites in the next few decades took away the civil rights blacks had briefly enjoyed, and almost another century passed before blacks finally won their rights back. Although there were some successful measures, Reconstruction essentially failed to create a democratic South. The vast majority of African Americans and many small farmers remained poor, without property and practically without enforceable rights. A system of sharecropping replaced slavery, making it almost impossible for families to work for their own success. The economy was slow to recover, and discrimination and resentment against blacks raged. The end of Reconstruction was part of a political agreement that helped decide the presidential election of 1876. Rutherford B. Hayes, the Republican candidate, won through a compromise. Samuel Tilden, the Democratic candidate, lost the election, and in turn, the military was removed from the southern states, and Reconstruction officially came to an end. This is known as the Compromise of 1877.
The Constitution of 1876 is the current constitution used by Texas. The Constitution started with a long Bill of Rights, stating Texas was a free state in the Union. It has been amended over 400 times. The Constitution limited the government's abilities. They gave more power to the people and lowered the salaries of the government. The judicial branch was also broken into 2. One part was for criminal charges, and the other was for civil doings. The Constitution forbade religious tests for government office. It guaranteed liberty of speech and press and the right for citizens to have weapons. Senators and representatives were to serve terms of 4 and 2 years. The governor has the power to call out the militia and to execute laws. The governor's salary was cut from $5,000 to $4,000. Finally, all judges were to be voted by the people. There is much more in this Constitution.